Hi, everyone. I'm Dennis Fischer. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Thought Leadership here at BeyondTrust's. Mark Mayfrey, our CTO, is with me today. How are you, Mark?
Dude, I am good. How about yourself, man?
I'm doing great. It's great to
Cool.
see you.
You too.
Um, so we're going to talk about AI in a few different ways. I've got a few questions queued up for you today, Mark. Three different kind of buckets that we're gonna put these into. So
Cool.
I'm going to start with sort of the topic of attack acceleration and how AI is playing into all that. So the first thing I wanted to ask is how much of what we're seeing in AI aided attacks today is new, and how much do you think is just um, existing attacks that are being made faster and more efficient by AI?
No, it's a good question. I think we do see it as the combination of there's AI based attacks that to your point are not necessarily like kind of new and novel or AI specific. It's taking age old security attacks, all the forms of phishing, right? Whether that would be like, crafting the right phishing email or text message or voice message. All those things are being made better because of AI. I was joking with somebody that, the phishing emails of yesterday where you would get like, the grammatical errors or it wouldn't kind of sound like maybe the local language or something. I mean, that's all being improved because of AI. So it's literally making attackers better at phishing. And then to your point, though, that's an example of AI amplifying kind of what's come before. So making that sort of attack better, easier, more exponential. We've seen that also in the other range of impersonation attacks where it's maybe getting different than what's come before, right? Where you're starting to get into what's maybe newer, more novel for AI itself. And so attacks there, for example, like the ability to create a digital video to mimic or impersonate and somebody being able to share that as a means of social engineering, that's not really something that used to happen in the past and is kind of made possible because of AI. And so I think, in the more popular sense, people are familiar with the kind of concept of deepfakes and stuff like that and how that actually works from a perspective of essentially enhancing phishing really overall. But the one bigger area that I think is much more unique because it's changing how businesses operate, how IT operates, is essentially the kind of advent of agentic AI, where people are starting to build these kind of autonomous systems where you have AI based agents that are all able to work together, orchestrate across lines. And that definitely represents a new area of security risk for businesses that isn't just yesterday's attacks made better because of AI, but a new set of attacks that didn't used to exist until now because of what's happening with agentic AI.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that everybody is sort of the most worried about because, we know how to handle phishing attacks in general. We know what to do with those or, in the broadest sense. But things that are new and novel forms of attack based on new and novel technology makes life a little more difficult.
Absolutely, and I love the point that you made about the uh, areas where AI is just amplifying previous types of attacks. Definitely, companies shouldn't think of that as like the sky is falling, everything's changing. Like what worked yesterday for some of those types of attacks. So, using strong forms of authentication that are phishing resistant or phishing proof still is very effective, right? Whether it's an AI generating phishing email or somebody kind of hand jamming it on a keyboard, doing strong forms of auth is helpful. But to your point, there is these kind of new things with agentic AI where right now the industry at large and companies are diving in, and I think where this goes over the next even 6 to 12 months, it's exploding, right? Like even if you go back in the last year or so, the kind of protocol, the mechanism that allows all these agentic AIs to kind of orchestrate and talk to each other, which is called the MCP or Model Context Protocol. That's a thing just getting created in the last year, right? And it's happening so rapidly where you have like a protocol that I don't even know if you can necessarily call a standard. It's just kind of what's winning out is already being adopted. People are starting to automate in this ways. And I think as we always see, anytime there's a new technology domain, what ends up happening is that the first problem every company has is getting visibility into this new space, this new domain. Where is the risk? Do I even have this? And most of the time, before a company has good policy around here's how we do agentic AI and here's all of our controls, you're essentially looking for the kind of shadow IT of, do I even know if agentic AI is happening in my environment? Where does it exist? How do I hunt that down and then build out my practice of what those controls and policies should be like?
Yeah, I think the old adage that you and I kind of grew up with in this industry of you can't secure what you don't know you have
It's
applies
it's
to this in a big
100%. It's
way.
one of the timeless things in security, right? Always comes down to knowing your attack surface, right? So what are all the different ways in which an attacker could potentially break in, manipulate technology, etc. And there's parts of AI that is just kind of amplifying attacks and kind of previous forms of attack surface. And then definitely with agentic AI, it's an entire new area of attack surface that you need to get a handle around. And to your point, it all starts with visibility, right? You definitely cannot secure what you cannot see. And I think one of the good things, kind of on your point, for those of us been doing this a while, like you see some of the kind of first principles in security, these timeless concepts. And so if you look at something that was equally true 30 years ago, equally true now for agentic AI, so a concept like least privilege, right? And so definitely for those customers of ours who are implementing least privilege every day from a privilege access management perspective, one of the most important things of what's happening with agentic AI, which is really built on a foundation of machine identity type of concepts, is identifying where these things are at, and then is it actually using the least amount of privileges? Do you have the right controls? And so it's definitely a good way that you put it in terms of like, how do we think about those first principles, those timeless security concepts that as the technology changes, it's Kubernetes and cloud previously and AI and things now, but there's these timeless things that I think if you think and look at it in that way, can help a lot, right? Do you have the right foundational elements versus just chasing the surface level of what's new?
Yeah. One of the other things that we know about attacks is that they always get better, not worse. Attackers innovate just like defenders do. So, what would you expect to see in the next, say, 2, 3, 4 years in terms of innovation in AI aided attacks?
I mean, I'll start with maybe like a sci-fi, if you could call it that type of AI attack. As somebody that discovered, co-discovered and named one of the first Microsoft computer worms, Code Red. I think there's so much potential with what's happening with agentic AI that eventually there's like the attack that never dies, right? There's like that in a way that like agentic AI wants to solve for. It's these systems autonomously working together to kind of solve for a goal, and you can set the AI agents on a task, and they'll just keep working towards it, right? I mean, that is the goal that we're working towards. And so no different than we're going to be able to use these things to benefit businesses of go solve this problem, go extend us in this way. Attackers are going to leverage it. And it's going to be, there's the AI that is sitting and working to hack a specific company or work in a way that maybe we think about things like worms and stuff, right? Where it's spreading and forever adapting, right? We're not quite there yet. So hence I kind of labeled a little bit more sci-fi, but if agentic AI becomes what it's supposed to from a kind of a business and consumer perspective of this kind of living secondary kind of human actioning across things, no doubt that has all sorts of attack implications. So I think that's an evolution and kind of maturity there that we're watching. But I think the more near term, bringing it back to like the right now, there's very real things happening with companies that have agentic AI when they don't even know that they have it, that they don't know the underlying machine identities and credentials and permissions that the agentic AI is using. And so a lot of those similar patterns of when there's a new technology that explodes and is overprivileged, has too much access, everybody's moving quickly. How do you get those foundational elements? And I think one of the nice things about those that are already working towards having a mature identity security program where you are trying to protect non-human identities and services and such, that lays a strong foundation that sets you up to be able to deal with agentic AI a lot better.
Yeah, that's kind of the next thing that I wanted to touch on with you is the agentic AI systems in terms of the identity landscape. How should enterprises be treating these AI systems in their identity, infrastructure?
Yeah, I think that we talked about it starts first with visibility, but maybe to dive deeper is I think there is that important understanding of what really powers most of what's happening from an agentic AI is essentially an AI agent can't really do anything unless it's given permissions to do something, right? And so we come back to, again, like we were saying, concepts like least privilege, where it's really important to understand what are the privileges that are underlying that agent, and that is as kind of described by some of the identities that are involved, the trust relationships between agents. And so for the companies that are already kind of doing things like discovering and understanding what are all the kind of different paths to privileges, the relationships between privileges in their environment and the identities, etc., the agentic part is just another layer on top, right? That foundational part is what needs to be solved for. In a similar way that you don't want to think about how do I police, what data is leaving my company going to AI-based systems. And if you're only thinking about that, but you never cared about, like, can an employee email themselves data to their personal address or put it on Stack Overflow, or accidentally a developer put it on GitHub or whatever, right? Like, the core problem is data exfiltration in that example. And I'd say the core of the problem right now of getting a handle around agentic AI is, do you have a good handle around kind of machine identity, non-human identities, things of that nature?
Yeah, excellent point. Um, in terms of the AI systems themselves, you as sort of an offensive minded researcher, what kind of targets are those AI systems themselves if you're an adversary that's looking at an enterprise infrastructure?
It's a great time to be a offensive security researcher. I mean, it's we see it in, again, anytime there's a new technology that grows rapidly and fast, sadly, security tends to be an afterthought, right? And by the time the industry or analysts or they get around to kind of coining an acronym about some of these things, it's because there's been enough breaches and problems that the kind of solution takes shape, if you will. So from an offensive perspective, I mean, there's very real and kind of specific AI based attacks. I think the agentic systems in particular are interesting because of the fact that most people, in order to kind of get them working, tend to have broad, open kind of permissions between systems. And so the ability, the opposite of least privilege is privilege escalation, right? So the ability to have an attacker land on the right identity, compromise some underlying agentic AI identity, and being able to have permissive access or too many privileges from there becomes a very, very real problem. And we've seen some things even happen, where it's essentially what I would consider more of a traditional attack, but has AI implications. So not even long ago, there was actually an attacker that was able to get a GitHub pull request released into, or sorry, get a release into Amazon Q that essentially didn't actually do anything malicious, but they were trying to show that they were essentially able to insert code that could potentially have like a malicious prompt. And so things like that, I think, are super interesting, where maybe previous forms of attack can be made worse. And so if you think of like the average developer system where you have many, many plugins that you're using to do software development, and now you have a bunch of AI plugins, and every one of those is a new kind of risk area that you have to be thinking about, just as one like narrow example.
Yeah, I think we both lived through sort of the rush to cloud, a few years ago, and somebody we both know said that if you don't have good security to begin with, you'll be very surprised to learn that it's not going to change very much when you get to the cloud, and I think that applies to AI as well.
No, that's totally it, man. Uh, it's not uh, it's not so much purely the, like, what do I do about agentic AI at this like surface level. Like, if you aren't doing the right thing of like identity least privilege controls to begin with, you're never going to solve this kind of now next kind of top layer problem. Like, you have to foundationally solve things in that way.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on a little bit to some of the product stuff for us. What what are the key areas where you see AI playing an important role in the Beyond Trust product line in the short term?
Yeah, we look at it a couple different ways. So there's how do we and with the things that we already do within our products to embrace AI to essentially just deliver better customer outcomes, right? So for example, one of our kind of key concepts that's very unique to what we do is the concept of true privilege, right? Where most people in the identity space, they're trying to give you an understanding of risky identities based on, what are the privileges that Dennis has been directly assigned. One of the things that we do, unique versus anybody in the market, is that we can look at all the privileges, trust relationships, misconfigurations, the kind of complicated web of things in the identity sphere to understand that Dennis might not be directly given admin rights, but through a series of misconfigurations and trust relationships, there's a path for your identity to become privileged in a way that it's not been directly assigned. And so, in order to do things like that we already do in our Pathfinder platform, we have to leverage things like machine learning and a variety of AI technologies to kind of get there. And so, we want to be able to continue to build down that path. So, there's some things that we're looking at near term, as far as I think, first and foremost, how do we bring customers visibility to the agentic AI specific concerns that we've been discussing. And so if you look at something like we do within our Identity Security Insights product, like we can already categorize all the different identities, accounts, privileges across your entire identity stack, whether that's cloud, traditional IT, SaaS, etc. And so we already have a great foundation there of what we're able to show you across all these identities. And agentic AI is part of that, right? And I think that's one of the things that we approach very differently as far as kind of solving for this is that solving for agentic AI, you cannot do it as a siloed, I have a solution, single standing tool to do agentic AI, right? Because agentic AI is wrapped up in the underlying ecosystem, and you have to be thinking more broadly. Because if you're not thinking about the edges that kind of connect ultimately to the agentic AI, then you're going to completely not have the full picture, right? And if I give a literal example, you look at something like in the case of some of what Microsoft does with Copilot and the ability to build agentic AI agents, there's things in there that you can essentially tie back to like existing sort of identities within Azure that have other identity security implications. So the pathway to that kind of agentic AI privilege might not actually have anything to do with the agentic AI agent itself, right? But other trust relationships behind the scenes. And so that's really important to us, is that we're solving for it in a complete way versus just an isolated, we got this new whiz bang agentic AI only thing, which doesn't tell you the whole story. So I think solving for it holistically in the way that we're already doing is really important.
Yeah. So long term, what do you see as the most important kind of evolutionary AI additions to the product line?
I mean, I think the promise of AI, which is both like the exciting promise or the scary one, if you think about how people think about it, is the AI and the ability for agents to kind of act on their own. Uh, that brings you to a point where there's going to be certain problems that you want to solve in security or just in life in general, right? Like it's applicable everywhere. And it can be something that you can eventually set AI to essentially go solve and kind of get to that end state and work through that problem, work towards that outcome. And so that's both exciting because I think we all know there's like every company, or all of us in our personal lives, it always feels like we're super busy, under resourced in what we have. And so the idea that you're going to be able to get some help to kind of make you, amplify what you're being able to do, what you're able to accomplish, that's both an exciting thing. I think less on the technology side. I think people, of course, get worried of like, if the AI is doing all the things, what's that mean for me? Uh, and I talk even to a lot of my techie friends and stuff that like I think one thing in the world is there's no shortage of people always wanting more, and I think what you'll see is there's the kind of it's not that AI kind of makes it where everybody has less to do. It's just everybody's more efficient, able to do a lot more, and there's just going to be more output, more productivity, and we've seen that through many kind of technological shifts over the many years, right? Like when the first digital ability to do spreadsheets got created, right? Like that was a huge shift that everybody that was doing spreadsheets on pieces of paper, you're like, I'm going to go out of business because it'd take me all day to do a single spreadsheet. Now I can do 20 in a day. People just wanted more spreadsheets. They wanted to compute more things about their business, right? So, I don't know. Maybe once we pair up AI with all the crazy robotic stuff, then it gets, then we're living in the sci-fi in the real way.
Yeah. The disease of more is a real thing.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, that's all I have for you, Mark. I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Dude, thanks for having me. Great chat, man.